So today I have a very, very, very special guest, and I'd like to introduce you to Sheraz Rayban from POWAlife, whose vision is to continue to be the catalyst in development of people and to be a realized agent for hope and brilliance amongst the nations of Africa and to the world. So welcome, Sheraz Rayban. Sheraz is the founder and the CEO of an amazing new innovative company that is setting new standards in human empowerment and business optimization through a science-based methodology. So, Sheraz, are you there?
Are we there? Oh, there we are. Okay.
Greeting to you, Sheraz. Great to have you.
Good morning. Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah. So okay. I was just waiting for my video to start, and so here we are. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks a lot for the invitation, firstly, and the privilege of sharing this morning with you.
Fantastic. Sheraz, can you describe to us a little bit about this company of yours that you're the founder of, POWAlife? And I'll just spell that for the listeners on Clubhouse. It's POWALIFE. Very, very interesting name. Can you tell us a little bit about what this company does?
Look, POWAlife is a scientific methodology that is being applied to empower people and create deep transformation in people. So the key is that we want to see how do we impact and empower people to the ultimate level, and then from there see how that impact them into their businesses. The way that you arrive inside your business every day will determine how successful that business will operate. So the key ultimately is people transformation to empower them to deliver the best in the financial and business environment at the end of the day.
Oh, okay. That sounds very interesting. Could you maybe describe to us the problems that your potential customers are experiencing that POWAlife can actually solve?
Yeah, look, mostly what's happening is that in business, you find that, especially in the current environment, there is a low morale because of exiting the COVID pandemic. But even before that, people who do not understand what their purpose is and end up doing a job for the sake of making money is not very driven. So what we do is the POWAlife methodology scientifically unpacks the intrinsic genius or the intrinsic signature that was induced into their brain at birth, the electrostatic signature. And what happens is that once you understand that, you know who you are firstly, and then secondly, you have clarity as to what your value is that you need to deliver in life. And that is what unlocks the problems or unlocks the potential in people. Other problems that they experience in business is a high attrition rate, so high staff turnover, because people are not selected for the position, ideally selected for the position that they hold. And then other problems are obviously team cohesion and all of that. So what happens is that in the business environment, a whole range of challenges that is prevalent can be solved by unpacking the key elements of people and then getting them to operate in the ideal space or flow in that specific business.
So Sheraz, this is very interesting, but now tell us a little bit how POWAlife offers the solution to resolve these problems.
Okay, so the concept of POWAlife and specifically the Power Pin code has to do with how you unpack the intrinsic genius of the person, and that comes from the electrostatic induction into the brain at birth.
And I was going to ask you what a power pin code is. You mentioned power pin code. I don't know what that is. Could you explain to the listeners what that is?
Okay, so as I was busy explaining that at birth, when the fetus is in the placenta, it's surrounded by amniotic fluid, and it screens the brain of the person, of the baby, from the electrostatic impact of the moon. And so what happens is that when the mother waters breaks and the amniotic fluid drains, a unique signature is induced into the brain, and that basically forms your personality traits for the rest of your life. So I've developed a scientific algorithm that unpacks exactly what are the elements of your personality during the period of after the induction process. And that frames what you naturally like to do, what you're naturally good at doing, what you believe the world needs in your opinion, your passion in life, your mission in life, your service consciousness, what is the ideal profession for you, what are the skills-based elements of your personality, and then ultimately what your life purpose is. And that all together forms the power pin code that will give you deep insight into who you truly are. But more than that, it will tell us what your ideal monetization model is, what is the easiest way for you to make money. And it will also look at what is the internal conversation that happens in your mind. So it really gets a person to understand for the first time who they truly are. And I'm implementing this at business and corporate levels, and basically every single business where this has been implemented became the #1 in the industry in the country, because of the ultimate success rate of operating from that intrinsic genius.
So now, how do you determine this PIN code, Sheraz? How do you determine it? I mean, for example, myself, I said to you, okay, Sheraz, what's my power PIN code? How would you determine that?
Okay, so what we take is we take your date of birth, and then the algorithm will calculate what the position of the moon was on that day. When I know what the position of the moon was on the day, I know exactly which signature was induced into your brain. And when I know the signature induced into your brain, I then can unpack a report of 20 pages about exactly who you are, how you think, how you make your decisions, and everything else about you.
Wow, wow. Now, I mean, that's very interesting. And so I would just need to give you my time of birth, the day, and then you can do everything else.
Yes, and where you were born. So because it obviously the signature shifts around the world. So if you were born in the East, then it is basically one day before that. And then when you like born in America, it would be a day later. And so the calculation basically works that way.
Oh, wow. So now, basically, by having this PIN code, you can now determine the characteristics of this person, what they like, what they don't like. Now, having that information, how do you help an individual or a business?
Okay, so from a business perspective, so the individual is easy because now they understand who they are and all of that. For a business, it becomes very powerful because in a business, there are multiple elements of intervention in a business. Firstly, with the recruitment process, if you give me a job position and the characteristics and the element of that job description, I can then identify which profile, and there are in total, there are 8 elements and 9 profiles. And so I can identify which of the profiles will give you the maximum productivity and infuse their energy without external incentivization because it's natural to them. So you have higher productivity and you have a lower staff turnover rate because they will be successful automatically. So if I have the job description, I can then unpack the elements of that, and then I can tell you which dates the ideal candidate should have been born on in order to make the best employee for that position. If we look at team cohesion, then the team cohesion means that if the team members understand one another more effectively, then there's better productivity because they will then report. So can you give me your date of birth quickly, David, if you don't mind?
Yes. It's 1961, 12/30, and I was born. I think I was born at 9 9 o'clock, but I'm not sure. It could have been 9:15.
Okay, so it's the 30th, the
30th
day
of December. Yeah, 30th of
of
December,
December.
1961, and I was born at the Marymount in Johannesburg. Now I'm really telling you all the story.
So, okay. So then let's just quickly look at your personal consciousness. So your personal consciousness is a systemizer, right? And a systemizer is about structure, order, control, and measurement. So that is the prevalence. That is the primary lens through which you look at life. It's about, so when you look at an environment or an event or whatever the case may be, what you do is you then package it, you compartmentalize it, and you park it in specific compartments in order to extract it at a later stage. So, and what happens that is that and you have a need for significance and what that means is that your profile likes to be acknowledged for the contribution that they've made, right? And so this is not ego. It is just that when you've made a contribution, it gives you significance when that contribution has been optimal and you get the acknowledgement and the feedback that for the value that you have delivered. Wow. It is also occupational, and the occupational side means that you will always structure yourself in a formalized way in order to create that significance and the value transfer for that. Now, if you take at that, basically what happens is that we know now you will usually operate within a technical environment as your personal consciousness. I just want to check my algorithm quickly for, you said the 3rd of December?
30th, 30th.
Oh, sorry, 30th of December. Oh. So the 30th of December. Okay, so your social consciousness, and the social consciousness is what you're naturally good at doing, and that is earth. And earth is about stability. So you come into an environment, and through technology or systemization, you will create social stability. So that is the part of the drive of who you are. So when you come into an environment, you look at measuring. So the fire element is about the measurement of it. And then you take that analytics and you use that in order to stabilize the environment so that there's social stability around you. And I mean, if I look at what you are doing, then you are involved in using a systemized version of bringing experts to the market. And what are experts doing? They are stabilizing the environment.
Sure, that's amazing. And, you know, I was just thinking when you're talking about that, you know, one of the big things that I did previously in my career was I did all the tender applications for the casino environment and getting the licenses for them. And I was very, very good at compartmentalizing everything and getting everything into its place and getting people to provide the information. So that really is so accurate. Wow, I'm so impressed.
Yeah, and then so obviously other stuff, other exciting stuff has to do with conversion in sales. And so using the PIN code, we look at, when we look at the profile of your client base, so then you can actually personalize the messaging to the client. So in your marketing information, you will speak to the client in that client's innate language, which means there's little resistance to the client and it doesn't filter out your message because it resonates with them. Because in the PIN code also, I can identify which are the words that resonate with you specifically. And when I use those words, your brain do not filter them. It accepts them as the truth. So there's a higher conversion rate because of that. Also, when you speak to clients, it's the same thing. And if you look at client retention on the other hand, so I will quickly relate a story to you where one of the big banks that I'm consulting for, they had a client with a 6.2 billion rand account that wanted to leave. And then they phoned me 8 o'clock in the evening and they said, listen, this client wants to leave, but we really want to retain the client. How do we handle this? So I asked him, what's the client date of birth? And the client's element is lava. So I told him, so what you can expect is tomorrow morning when that guy walks in, he's going to destroy you because lava is very destructive. It's slow, deliberate, and very destructive. But at the same time, the reason why what he's looking for is looking for optimization. And clearly you haven't been providing the optimization early enough for the client. So your deck should be structured in order to show optimization. The client's mind thinks in bullet points, so there mustn't be a lot of words. And at the end of the day, drive the optimization by giving him over a period, not a once-off, but over a period, advantages. So they engage with the client, and the outcome of the meeting was the client stayed. And recently they told me the client did another 100 million rand deal with him. So that is the power of knowing your client and exactly how your client thinks in order for you to communicate your value proposition effectively so that the client comprehends exactly what you are saying and do not miss what you are trying to achieve.
Wow, that is so powerful. And you know what I like what you're saying is that, you know, in recruitment, you can actually go along and identify upfront the type of people that you need by coming to you and saying, okay, this is the type of person I need. What birth dates should I be looking at? And, you know, where should they have been born, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's really, really powerful.
Absolutely. And we've got the social proof that it is working effectively, because every region in the corporate sector that they have applied this, when we apply, that region becomes #1 in the country. It outperforms every other region in the country. And what we're doing is we look at the ProvCo team, the provincial committee, and we develop those regional managers. And those regional managers then resonate the genius of themselves into the branches and into the staff at those branches. And then suddenly there is an explosion of productivity and conversion, and the profitability goes up. Everything changes. The culture within the organization completely changed because of that. And then they escalate to ultimate success. So yeah, very exciting stuff. I feel very fulfilled with the work that I'm doing.
I must say, from my point of view, when you're reading out my profile, I felt that I had been listened to. It was just amazing. Like, yo, that's me. So it actually gives you that sense of, okay, this person understands me, and that I think is so powerful from a point of view of, if you can have that scenario where you can actually say to your management, okay, this is your staff, this is who they are, and so on. This is their makeup, and this is where they will outperform other people in respect of their talents, etc. So I really, I think this. But now, Sheraz, where did you come up with this amazing solution? Because I've never heard of this before. This is totally new to me.
Yeah. So what happened was that my beautiful daughter, who's also on the call today, when she went to school at 6 years old, they called my wife and myself in and to tell us that there is a bit of a challenge. She has a brain disorder that causes hand-eye coordination problems, and she would be a slow learner and all of that. And I was obviously, I'm running an IT company now for 27 years, so I'm a techie. So I told my wife, listen, man, I'm a techie. When something is broken, we techies fix it. So I'll fix this. She obviously quickly reminded me that our daughter's not a PC, she's a human being. But yeah, so it took me on a journey where I started studying the brain and started understanding how does the brain work, how does the neural linkages in the brain form, and how that impacts your understanding, your belief systems, and ultimately your actions. And then I started developing interventions that I applied to her. And in matric, she was one of the 2 top engineering drawing students in the top Model C school in Worcester. So today, as we sit here, she's building market automation platforms for some of the biggest corporates in the country.
Wow.
And this is where, after they felt that she wouldn't amount to much. So that is where it all started. And when I realized the impact on her, I then formalized the system, because I believe that there must be other people with similar challenges. But the exciting part came when when I thought to myself, what if you apply this system to people who do not have a brain disorder? And suddenly ultimate performance was born. And you can take somebody. So just to give you a bit of background, when you are born, your mother and father, firstly, and I'm using this very carefully, contaminates your belief systems and your value systems by infusing their values into you. And this is not innate to you. You were born with innate values. And then society does it, the school and education does it, and all of that. So eventually, as you sit there, you are only partly living the value system of yourself. The biggest part of the value system is actually bought into and adopted by you from other people. So what makes POWAlife different is that where the other profiling methodologies ask you 50, 60 questions, and based on the answers that you give, they then profile you. The problem with that is that most of those answers are contaminated with others' belief systems and other people's values. So it's never the true version of you. So what the Power Pin code system does, it literally takes you to the point of birth before any contamination has happened. And then it unlocks, activates that part of you, and then you realize you can become the ultimate version of who you were born to be.
Wow, that is just so powerful and so. So from this whole process, well, for example, myself, you would come to me and say, okay, David, this is your profile based on your birth and where you're born. And then from there, what do you do from there onwards? How do you assist me? How does POWAlife assist me?
So there are two elements, or actually three elements to POWAlife. There's the Power Rise element. The Power Rise element is the identification, the unlocking, and the activation of your intrinsic genius through the Power Pin code. Then there's the Power Wealth side, and the Power Wealth side then frames what is the ideal monetization model for your specific profile. So what is the easiest way and the most powerful way for you to make money and convert your genius into value that you can exchange in life and in business? Wow. And then the third part is Power Thrive. And Power Thrive is how do you take the combination of your genius and the value system as a value proposition? And how do you leverage that at a global level in order to become ultimately wealthy based on the value that you can provide to humanity?
Wow. That is just an awesome product. And this is now all available. I mean, it's all developed and it's available. Sure.
Yes, it is.
This is really, really powerful. But now, obviously, I mean, you said you're a techie and that, but now obviously to come up with this amazing discovery, because obviously it was there and you've basically taken it and automated it in such a way. What was your career path in getting you to actually come to this space in your life, Sheraz?
Yeah, so obviously coming from a tech background, so from early on school days, I've always been playing with technology and all of that. And I believe technology was the key to transformation in people. And this is why I started an IT company, because the IT company was very dedicated to bringing IT systems into the school and education environment. But also when I was like early on, one of my math teachers told me that, or told the class, that we are only using anywhere between 1% and 5% of our brain power. And that always bugged me. Why are we limiting ourselves like that? Where's the other 95% of the brain power, and why do we not use it? And so from school days onwards, I've always been reading mind power books and all of that to try and figure out how does the brain work and how do you unlock the other 95%. So it started there already. The tech side, obviously, as I said, education, but what I found was that I got the contract to implement focus schools in the Western Cape. And they spent about 6 million rand per school in order to up the conversion rate and in the pass rate in matric. And what we found was that after each school spending 6 million rand, there was no change in the pass rate. And it is at that stage, and we're talking about interactive whiteboards, pervasive network systems, all the technology that you could want in a school environment was there. But I realized the mindset that you walk into the classroom with will determine how effectively you use the technology in the classroom. And it is at that stage that I ultimately realized that the answer does not lie in the technology itself. The technology is only a tool. The answer lies in the transformation of the mind and the consciousness in people. And once you lift the consciousness up and their mindset changes, everything else changes. How you will leverage the technology will then change. And I realized that business is a tool. So how you approach the business, you can have a fast food franchise in a specific location with a specific staff and a specific client base. The manager and the attitude and the consciousness of the manager will determine how that outlet will ultimately perform. So when you shift the consciousness to a higher level and get that person to understand who they are and how to leverage the resources around them, then profitability explodes within that entity. And that is ultimately what we want to see. So the key for POWAlife is to get to a point where we pervasively implement this in order to improve and increase the value creation by each person. And that ultimately will completely change the world and its productivity and its efficiency and effectiveness. So, yeah.
Sure. So you're actually making super people.
That's exactly right. But it's not, you see, the key, it's actually the opposite, David. It is not creating super people, is unlocking the superness inside of you that's always been there.
Oh, I love that.
But you have it's always been muted. And now for the first time, you start living your true life. And I see this every single time. People say, but why didn't I know this? So I said, no, you've always known this. It was just never unlocked because you bought into a belief system that you are not good enough and that you are inferior. And that limited you. So this is unlocking the truth that's already inside of you.
Wow. This is really powerful, Sheraz. I must say kudos to you for actually unlocking this whole process and actually coming up with the methodology to assess it and also to take it forward to be where it is today. I mean, this is something that I think is going to change people's lives very much so. I mean, already you know, just by saying what you said to me just now made me feel, wow, you understand me better than anyone else.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Where are we going from here? Where you know, what is your plans in next 5 years? What do you want to achieve with POWAlife?
Yeah, so firstly, let's start with me. And why do I exist and what is my purpose? So, but interesting part is my name. The Arabic meaning of my name means lamp in the dark or light in the dark. So I exist in order to provide, and if you look at light is non-invasive. It doesn't affect the physical reality. It only highlights the ideal path for the participants in that reality. So I want to be a guiding light for people globally in order to find their ideal path in life and then start living that at the utmost level, at the ultimate level. From POWAlife for me is a tool. It's a process that can be applied in order to guide people to that ideal path. And what I see POWAlife as a global platform. And I want to facilitate something called zero distance empowerment. And zero distance empowerment means that in the old days, you had to travel to the gurus to go and find enlightenment and insight and wisdom. I want to get to a point where this kind of wisdom is pervasive all over the world, and it must be a click away. And when I've achieved that, it means that there will not be a limitation to where humanity could ultimately advance to. And people will start living fulfilled lives because they found themselves and they found their intrinsic genius, and they can live that out in the ultimate manner in order to live a life of fulfillment. And that is where it is for me. I am fortunate at this stage that I am approached by a significant range of local and international companies in order to provide this guidance to them from a board level and from usually from a chairman perspective of the board. And so I'm blessed with that, which means that the footprint is expanding significantly. And because of all of that, it gives me the opportunity, and it's such a privilege to enter people's spaces and their lives and to help them empower themselves at the end of the day.
Wow. You know, what was coming to mind when you were talking now was a slogan: find yourself with POWAlife.
Sure. Absolutely. And maybe on the other side of it, the tech side. So the tech in me is still very prevalent. And on the tech side, so what I framed, and this will be a big industry into the future, is the electrostatic induction will become a very big thing, because it will be unbelievably powerful to expose yourself to the alignment. So the brain has a specific vibration that it operates in, and you need to align, or what is the word that I'm looking for? You need to simplify and create a cohesive vibration in the brain to become the ultimate version of yourself. So I am developing technology components. And so the brain exists of 80% water and only 20% cellular mass. And the electrostatic induction lies in the water particles in the brain. So I'm involved in several businesses that one of them is actually creating a wellness juice, a health juice. So for you, David, we will have a juice that is induced with the ideal vibration as a systemizer. So when you drink the juice, it literally converges your energy back to the origin of where it should be. And that will enhance your brain power, your gift, and everything. Your health will improve because of that. So that is one of the entities that I'm involved in. And then there are obviously other tech companies, other coaching and development companies, and all of that I'm partnering with in order to see how we pervasively empower people into the future. So this is a very big platform that will eventually emerge. And on that platform, we will then see how do we penetrate. And for me, if I want to share a vision that I had, I think in 2008. And I was in the vision, I was standing in front of an audience and I was speaking, but I didn't hear what I was speaking, but there was a very positive vibration coming back, response coming back from the audience. So whatever it is was appropriate. And then my consciousness went outside of the hall, and there was a mist coming out of the windows and doors, and it covered the hall. And then the mist spread over South Africa, and eventually it spread over Africa. And when the mist cleared, Africa was gold-plated. And Africa started rising out of the ocean, and it eventually was higher than the rest of the world. I have no idea where that came from. At this stage, I believe POWAlife could be the mist that is spreading over Africa in order to empower and unlock the brilliance in Africa to become the ultimate continent in the world. So that is my journey, that is my gift, that is my dream. And I hope and trust that I will be able to attract other people that can continue on this journey with me to take Africa to its ultimate level.
Sure. I must say that's amazing. And I think, you know, by helping people to unlock and find themselves, and then being able to understand what type of work they should do, or what type of industry they should be in, is something that will allow people to be far more productive.
Absolutely. It is more than that. I mean, I've had people who actually try to commit suicide. And in one session, I could turn them around and give them their purpose in life. And they went on to become ultimately successful after that. So that is the value of it. It's really the true empowerment element of getting people to live their best lives.
Sure. I totally can see that. And, you know, just from you just telling me a little bit about my profile, and I could very quickly understand and identify where I have been successful in my life. And it's exactly what you said. So I think this is a very, very powerful process. But now I want to ask you a little bit about, you know, you spoke about this what did you call it? Electrostatically charged items. What is that actually? I don't understand that. If you could just explain to us a little bit about that, Sheraz.
Okay, so what is happening is that we have 112 vibrational nodes in our body, right? And that is how the body works. In the East, they call it chakra systems, but it's technically vibrational systems that basically makes up your whole being. And what happens is that when you are exposed to negativity, when you're exposed to trauma and all of that, some of those vibrations go out of alignment. And so the universe works on those vibrational elements. So what I've done is, from the beginning, I said, I want to unpack the science of life, because science has the opportunity of having a formula. And if you apply the formula consistently, you will always get the same result. Because I was challenged with the inadequacy of consistent transformation and change in people. So everything is science-based. So I literally went down and went to find out, how does life work at a vibrational, but at a molecular level. So the deepest element of scientific version of your being. So, and everything in POWAlife is based on science, physical and mathematical science, not pseudoscience. And so what the electrostatic induction is, that the electrostatic induction has to do with the natural vibration at one specific moment, and it changes from moment to moment. And as it changes, the induction onto the magnetosphere on Earth happens, and the magnetosphere projects that into the brain and the water cells within the brain. So what that means is it's purely a vibrational energy that is pervasive. And so look, the old people said that, he's troubled by the moon. And what they actually meant was that the induction of the moon at that specific state changes his thinking a little bit. I mean, I don't want to go too wide so that it becomes too hoo-ha, but this electrostatic, so on the sun, every 11 years, there is what they call sunspots. It's electromagnetic explosions in the sun. And when that happens, it projects it onto the magnetosphere, and that projects it onto Earth. So what you'll find it consistently, the major stock market crashes happens just about every 11 years. The dot-com bubble, 99, the 2008, 2009 market crash, and all of that. And then in 2020, I was actually in one of the big banks, and I told them, we are imminent for another stock market crash. And they said, but there are no indications for that. And I said, well, from what I know and the science I've unpacked, it should happen. And then suddenly COVID hit and the crash happened. So it is using what I call, so artificial intelligence, AI, right? So what I am using is UI. It is universal intelligence. It's intelligence that sits there. It's always been there. I've created nothing new, David. Everything that I present in POWAlife already existed. I just packaged it differently, and I found the scientific foundation of each of those elements in order to make sense and make it replicable, so that it actually has value in implementing in your life, and you know exactly what the outcome is going to be. And the core of our being is to get the electrostatic induction that has happened into the brain, and then take that, optimize it, and align it so that life becomes easy. So you live a life of flow. You run a business in flow. There are no upheavals. Suddenly there's a lot, and then there's a famine cycle. It is consistent wealth creation based on what it is and the intrinsic genius that you have.
Wow. I was just thinking about, the Chinese calendar. If you look at the Chinese calendar, I mean, it's something similar to that, isn't it? If you look at it.
Yes. So, and there's similarities, but there are also differences, right? And again, I want to emphasize the difference is that I went the scientific route and not the philosophical route. So if you cannot unpack it at a scientific level, you do not truly understand it. And when you do not truly understand it, you're going to implement it in the flawed way, and the outcome will not always be ideal. So I literally can guarantee results if the person follows the exact process and framework that I prescribe. And nobody has ever failed that has applied it properly.
Sure, sure. No, it's something I think I need to do definitely, and I'm sure there are a lot of listeners here today on Zoom as well as on Clubhouse who would like to perhaps have their, what do you call it, their ID, their profile, what do you call it, as
their power pin code.
Their power pin code, identify what it is, and that would be very interesting. Tell me a little bit about your, you spoke about these electrostatic elements that you want to create, and you also spoke about the juice that you want to do. Is there anything else that you want to do as well into the future?
Yeah, so look, we are looking at the holistic concept of electrostatic induction and alignment, and it will be a very subtle. So you can literally, when you drink water, it will have a fingerprint identification. So as you put your finger on the tap, it reads your fingerprint, and it will induce the right frequency for your water, for your profile into the water that you drink. On the juice side, just interestingly enough, so we also now framing the production of the ingredients. So we will use vertical farming, and so for your profile, the water that irrigates the plants and the ingredients for that will be electrostatically induced in order to align with your vibrational resonance. The environment that it is in, the water that's being used in the juice and all of that will be completely aligned with what the profile is. So where we're going, and maybe this is a part where I can say, on the power pin code framework that I've developed. So it is a chart that I've developed, and on there, it also, while it unpacks all the personality elements, it also unpacks perfectly in alignment the business processes. So what is the ideal process to build any business, and make sure that it is impossible for the business to fail by following those processes. Yeah. But what I also found was that it also extrapolates the industrial revolutions. So in 2017, I could already prepare my corporate clients for this industrial revolution that we are in now. And so the branches, the products and services, the way that they present those services and everything is in alignment, because I knew what the upcoming industrial revolution was going to be. And so I can tell you what the next one is, and the next one, and the next one, which means that by using the system, you can develop just-in-time products and services for the market before the market even knows what they are going to think and want. And interesting, one of the courses that Gerrit invited me on with James Morfetis, and so I asked him, for what I'm doing, what is the ideal way to say, to make a one-line statement, just like you've done now? And he says that, what you say is POWAlife. You know what your client is thinking before he opens his mouth.
I love that. I think that's very powerful.
It is, right? Yeah, so he was sharp, man.
Sure. No, yeah. Absolutely. I think that you've got a fantastic product. Are there other people that are doing something similar to what you do? Are there competitors in the market, or similar products to what you do?
Yes and no. So there are similar products that make similar claims. There's the clear differentiation. This is what I said earlier. The others ask you a lot of questions, and then they frame it according to that, because the answers will also be flawed because of the influences. Unfortunately, the effectiveness and the integrity of that profiling will not be the same. I don't specifically know of any other company or business that's using electrostatic induction as part of a product range yet. So that's fairly new, I would guess. And I've tried to figure out. There are other entities that does coaching from what they call a scientific perspective, but theirs is artificial intelligence. They gather as much information about you as possible, and then they build algorithms that will predict from where you are what your possible next purchases could be or your next actions could be and all of that, which is also not scientific. It is just because profiles or the data that you accumulate is not ideal. Because if you are on your laptop and they track what you do on your laptop, and your child comes and plays a game on the laptop, that becomes part of your of the data that they pick up. So it is not foolproof that way. This eliminates everything, and it goes to the concept of universal intelligence, and then use that as the foundational intelligence in order to unpack who you are and what your preferences are, how you think, and all of that. So, but I'm also careful that it is used, that my system is used ethically, because I don't want it to be abused for the sake of money. So there must be integrity behind the application. It must be for the empowerment of people and not the exploitation of people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And maybe that's how you do that is maybe for another subject. What I wanted to ask you, Sheraz, is you're here today with the CEO Business Club and the I Need an Expert platform. I want to ask you, how can experts and other fellow CEOs here help you in your business? In other words, what is your big ask today?
My big ask is that for this technology and methodology to become pervasive. So I want to create awareness. So if please engage with me, understand it, because one of the big challenges is that this can sound very out there if you do not understand that it's scientific. So experience it, contact me, and so that we can engage and experience it. And once you've seen the integrity and the authenticity of what it is, then please go and see how do you empower your network by introducing them to me. That is my big ask, is you will literally help me to fulfill my life purpose if you assist me on this journey. As I said earlier, I want fellow participants on this journey. I want people who has the pure intent of wanting to make an impact on humanity. And I mean, I spoke to Jeff and Jessica yesterday, and I said, so if you look at the financing environment, it is, you can provide finance and create a debt trap for people, or you can use financing in order to empower people towards abundance. It is just a perspective of what is the intent with which you want to run your business. And that is the same for every single business. If your intent is to empower people, there will always be a way of, and this is my ask, is how do we partner and bring POWAlife into your value proposition stream to take what you have, make it unique, and then empower people through it. Then we've got a win-win situation, and we really then pervasively expand people's genius into the market where they start living fulfilled lives.
Wow, I love that. And I think that's exactly what we all do. And I think that's what we're doing here on the Expert Show, as well as on CEO Business Club. So I'd really like to ask if there are any questions for those of you on Clubhouse, please put them into the chat. I see there's some already. I'm going to ask you now, show us those questions. And then there are some also in the Zoom chat box as well. So I'm going to start with the one from Clubhouse. It's from Megan. Welcome, Megan. So I'm going to just ask, Megan asks, can the Earth's meridian lines be used as well to measure people?
Yes, it can be. The key is the ultimate personalization. So the meridian lines obviously create electrostatic induction or electrostatic vibration. So that is more an influence on than an identification of. So as I talk about your vibrational nodes, so there are a range of vibrational elements in the universe. and they all influence. And I mean, this is an interesting subject because if you look back in the day when radar came through, there was a vibrational pervasiveness of radar frequencies, and that resulted in, or well, let me be careful not to say it resulted in, but what coincided was that was the Spanish flu. So there was, you know, there are some conspiracy theories running around that says that 5G is coming, and because 5G came, the COVID environment came. So all I'm saying is that these frequencies are there, and 5G is one of the pervasive frequencies that will infiltrate our lives. I don't see it as necessarily good or bad. It is more a matter of how do we adapt to the new vibration. And the only way to do it is that, or the ideal way to do it, is that you need to retain your core vibration so that it doesn't disrupt your core vibration. Because it is when you disrupt your core vibration that you become vulnerable and you become ill, and then ultimately, as we've seen with COVID, a lot of people died because there wasn't an ideal integration of those frequencies into your existing frequency base.
Okay, that leads me to a question about 5G. You said it could be bad or could be good. What is your view on that?
So what is happening is that 5G is, because it's a very high frequency. Now, high frequencies cannot propagate very far, right? So it has a short distance until it attenuates to a too low signal. So it means is that they must have a lot of transmitters. So transmitters will become pervasive. I mean, I think in some of the countries, they mounting it on every light pole. There's a transmitter in order to create a pervasive network for that. So when I say it's not necessarily good or bad, the bad part is that if it is at too high a power in order to create long distances. So what they should do is not create very strong transmitters, but rather replicate it more often in lower power penetrations. So then it should be fairly harmless, and our bodies are built, I mean, we're vibrational human beings. So we adopt vibration, and then eventually that vibration is infused, and then we normalize to what we should be. The key here is that if we have already distracted consciousness levels, that ultimately creates, and we're going now into a whole direction, that creates comorbidities in the body from an infection perspective, right? And that makes you vulnerable. So if there are external energies that comes to you, like the COVID virus is a vibrational change agent, then it means that the integrity of your original framework is now compromised. And this is why so many people died because of COVID, because their constitution could not adopt the new vibration, and that ultimately affect their health. And then some of them obviously didn't survive that. And it comes back to the science of the water in the brain. So you see, the reason why COVID, and okay, let me make a statement. COVID is a catalyst in the consciousness transformation of humanity. So we were supposed to go, this current revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, is the mist revolution. Mist you can see, but you can't touch it. So it's visible, but not tangible. And the consciousness revolution, or the industrial revolution that we have entered, is supposed to activate that pervasiveness in humanity, that we need to go to visible. I mean, we're sitting here and people all over the country and all over Africa and all of that, it's visible, but not tangible. So Zoom became, and Teams and all of this became the primary communication methodology aligned with the mist element of visible, but not tangible. But what is also important from for the business people on this call is that you need to get your product and service into an environment where it becomes visible and not tangible, because then it becomes scalable and you don't need to physically deliver it anymore. So the key ultimately is that the transformation of the holistic influence of 5G, COVID and all the other stuff, the meridian lines and all of that, that I almost want to say that quantum soup of vibration we are consistently exposed to. The key for survival is to be strong in your core. So what the PowerPoint code does is it reactivates and empowers your core. So when you live according to your core, you are completely invulnerable for what is happening around you. You're stronger in order to survive, and the integrity remains for you to survive into the world without being affected by these at the health level or wellness level.
Sheraz, I mean, you're just a wealth of information, I must say, and I think there's a really interesting subject, and I think we can talk about that more and more and more. But what I want to do, I see there's some really good questions coming up here. Stanley Rook has asked a very important question, and it's actually a similar question to what Jeff has also asked for. So I'm going to put the two together. So Stanley says, is Sheraz seeking scale-up funding? And Jeff says, when you're going to IPO and how can we help?
Yeah, so the answer is yes on both. And so I am in a process of, not in a process, so there are already entities that has become investment entities for the contribution to the ultimate IPO journey. So the strategy that I've developed is, before I identified IPO aspirations, I got involved in businesses where I have equity in, and these businesses are people empowerment aligned or human empowerment aligned. And those entities will ultimately form part of the journey towards IPO. So what's happening is that now I'm finalizing the financial roadmap and the strategic framework to take POWAlife to IPO. And yeah, so the conversation is very relevant, and it is almost spot on. It's like ideal timing. So what's the space? We will definitely be activating this journey very, very soon.
Fantastic, fantastic, Sheraz. So more importantly, how do people get hold of you? That is really a very important aspect.
Yeah, look, so obviously I've got there are the Facebooks and all of that. I'm not too active on social, or I haven't been too active on social media until now. With everything that is happening and the stabilization in the market, the opening up of the awareness of POWAlife into the market, we will now go on a total drive to put the awareness out there. And so you see, David, I'm very careful that everything in POWAlife has been tested for social proof before I put it out. So I don't make a big hoo-ha about anything until I have proven that the integrity is absolutely perfect. I've literally given the PowerPoint code to people in the industry, and I told them, please break this for me. See if you can break it. And nobody could. In fact, they came back to me and says they've never seen anything with this level of integrity that complies so overarchingly with everything in life. So that gives me the foundational strength to say I can go at a global level and present this and have an impact on humanity without worrying about the integrity of my system. It is there. The PowerPoint code applied, and I'll tell you, one of the banking executives, every time there's a new team that does it, he tells them, please, at least one of you, I want you to say Sheraz is wrong, because he's never been wrong in the thousands of people that we've been exposed to. He's never once been wrong with the PowerPoint code. So that's the level of integrity. And but as I say, so there will be much more social media activity and all of that being presented. I will be more active on the platforms, and I want to absolutely thank you for the opportunity here, because this is truly what will get us to move forward, and that will be very valuable for the journey of POWAlife and the availability. So they can obviously get hold of me on my email address, which is sheraz@powalife.co.za. And then my number is 082-578-1572. and I'm open to engagement, and I want to see fellow participants with me on this. This is powerful. This is literally about, you know, the statement that said that the only people who change the world are the people crazy enough to think that they can. I believe we can.
Absolutely. I totally support you on that. We can do that, definitely. Sheraz said some more questions that have come up here on Clubhouse, so I'm going to ask them quickly. So Megan asks, you mentioned that every 11 years there is a crash. What determines that it must be in 11 years?
So it is not that it must be in 11 years. It is so what we understand is that it is not a philosophy of no, every 11. It's not coincidental. It is by design, I suppose. So as I said, if you look up sunspots, so sunspots are explosions on the sun, and for whatever reason, mostly even every 11 years, there's a significant prevalence. So scientists are measuring the electrostatic radiation from the sun, and every 11 years there is there's a glitch in how the electromagnetic radiation is then increasing, and because of that radiation, it affects. You see, the thing is that there are a few things that I need to explain about the brain, but the long and the short of it is that it affects our brain, and it creates certain emotional activities within the brain or perceptions. So people go in what they call a lower brain frequency, and the lower brain frequency put them in a state of mind where they are risk averse. And when they become risk averse, they get worried, and then they start selling off if they think there is a threat on the market, and that activates the market crashes. So it's not something that somebody says. There is a prevalence of risk averseness, and that activates the actions of the people and how they then act out and react to what the markets are doing. But it doesn't, that's only on the market side. These things happen on a regular basis in different perspectives, and in a longer discussion, we can then unpack why that is and how it is impacting us. There's also something called retrograde, and we are literally in retrograde, and retrograde ends tomorrow, which is also an electrostatic induction into the brain that creates, it's almost like you look through a veil. And so you see what is happening, but you don't have clarity on that. And during a retrograde period, you ideally should not sign any contracts, because you don't see clearly what is exactly meant in the contract. And only afterwards you see, oh, but I thought it meant that, but it means something different, And so these are the science of life and the science of the universe that empowers you to protect yourself and protect the journey that you are on, and not do things. And that's a very interesting scenario of how your brain is vulnerable to these electrostatic inductions, and how it affects it, and how your thinking capacity and your clarity of thought and actions result from that.
Sure, Sheraz. Oh, that's very, very interesting. Thank you for that. You've actually made you've cleared this up for me, because I always, wondered how these things happen. So thank you for sharing that. I see Wilhelm Lombard has asked a question. Does this mean that with the right, I'll just read the question. Does this mean that with the right fluid, we will not get sick and even live forever? I think Wilhelm's talking about the juice that you spoke.
Yeah. So okay. So firstly, by design, we do not live forever, because without trying to get too philosophical, we are born for a specific purpose. So the purpose or the need already exists before we are born, right? In the electrostatic induction at birth, that purpose is induced into your brain, and then you live your life. And if you never find what the ideal purpose is, you will never find fulfillment. So the PowerPoint code and the PowerPoint code report for the first time give absolute clarity. And I can tell you every single person that has adjusted their life path within alignment of what the PIN code report said are thriving. And when I say thriving is they become the best at whatever they are doing. The key is that we are not here to live forever, because we will have different journeys and different purposes. So your life, so eventually you will die, but what it will do is the integrity of your health will improve. You will changes in okay, easy way. So I've been identified about 12 years ago, I guess 13 years ago, as an extreme diabetic. So they wanted to put me on to medication, a chronic medication. And I said, no, I will not be a chronic diabetic. And I applied my POWAlife methodologies to that. And I can tell you now, it's now 12, 13 years later, I've never had any diabetic attacks or any diabetic symptoms. I use sugar and I drink Coke and whatever the case may be, and it has never affected me. So what I'm saying with the juice is, and there are other practices in POWAlife that will help you with your health, is that you will remain in the ideal state where what would usually threaten your health will become immune. So what happens is the body will discard. So as I drink coffee or whatever with sugar in, my body, because of the vibrational integrity of my body, it absorbs only the right amount of sugar that I need, and it automatically discards the rest. It's not absorbed into my body. But that is determined on the state of mind and the state of being of the vibrational alignment in your body. So the juice will assist with that alignment, so you will become more immune from viruses, infections, and all of that.
Thank you very much, Sheraz. Thanks for explaining that. And then last question I have, there's no more on the Zoom, but on Clubhouse from Stanley again. Is this going to go the metaverse route?
Yes, it will. But the so what the concept for the metaverse route is something called what I call Thrive City. And Thrive City is an environment. So again, it is about human optimization. How do you become the best you can be, but also how do you run the best business that you can? So the metaverse concept is that I want to create two versions of the metaverse. The one is an experimental metaverse where you can do testing, and the other one will be a live, let's call it a live trade environment, where you can actually activate with the knowledge and the intellect that you've gained on the one. So in the experimental, or in both metaverses, you will operate your avatar as part of the PIN code. So your personality traits in the metaverse for the avatar will be exactly in alignment with what that is in your true life. So when we have a symbiosis in the metaverse, it means that when you, so when you take, I need an expert, and you want to run a campaign, you can run the campaign into the experimental metaverse and see what the response is. And then you can tweak it and change the words and all of that to align more with the profile. And then once you get the right signature of what you want to present, then you take it and then you put it into the real metaverse, where it becomes a live trading product, where it actually presented to your real customers and all of that. So you optimize the whole concept without the risk of putting it in, failing, and then trying again and failing. So you first tweak it to perfection, and then you implement it and activate it in a reality environment. And for me, that metaverse will be holistic. So there will be suburbs, and you can enjoy live music of, for instance, jazz clubs all over the world. You can have your education journey within the metaverse. You can have your friends and network journey. You can run your business in there. So that is ultimately the bigger concept of what the Thrive City will look like, where it will be a real metaverse of activity that will bring people from all over the world into one space, and where they interact. But again, it will be in an environment of empowerment and not exploitation.
Wow, Sheraz. Well, I must first of all compliment you on your expertise and your intellect and just this huge idea, and that it's reality and that you can do this. So congratulations. Last question. What is your winning aspiration? What is your winning aspiration?
Look, for me, it is, as I mentioned it earlier, it is zero distance human empowerment. It is ultimately, how do we get the POWAlife methodology to a point where people in the most remote areas of the universe can use it, leverage it in order to live their best lives in their environment. I believe there's a groundswell, and that groundswell is that there is alternative thinking. And the alternative thinking is taking out of the current limitations of our education system, out of the current limitation of, if you just look at society and how society is degrading in effectiveness, how the unemployment rate is increasing. But it's at the same time, it is, I don't see it as, because of POWAlife, the electrostatic induction and all of that, I don't see it as the rise of the machines. I see it as the rise of humanity, because until now, people have been able to sell their time, energy, and knowledge in order to create an income. We are now in a new consciousness environment where you need to sell your time, energy, knowledge, and talent in order to create your ultimate life experience. And this is the key to everything. So my winning aspiration is that, how do people find their intrinsic genius and their talent, and how do they convert that into value, and how they can present that value from anywhere in the world and have and enter the metaverse of the Thrive City in order to thrive, irrespective if they're sitting somewhere in a little village in the Eastern Cape, or in the middle of Sandton, or in Kailicha. Everybody has a value proposition that's intrinsic to them, that is unique to them. We need to get to the point where society focuses on unlocking and activating each person's value proposition so that they can live fulfilled lives and not be dependent on anybody else or externally. So again, my winning aspiration is to have a business and an entity that has a global impact for the empowerment of people. And it's very possible. And I am absolutely excited and dedicated to leave that as my legacy in life.
Wow, Sheraz. Well, thank you so much for being here on the Expert Show. We've been talking to Sheraz Rayban from POWAlife. He's the founder and the CEO. And this is a most amazing interview. And I must say, thank you very much. We've actually gone over time. We've nearly gone for an hour and a half, which is just, I think it's the longest interview we've had so far. So thanks for that. And I'd just like to thank all of those of you who've been here on Clubhouse as well for supporting us and staying on and listening into this fantastic interview. And thank you again, Sheraz. And now I'm going to hand back to Jeff from the CEO Business Club. Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, David. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
It's really much appreciated.
Thank you so much, David, for and thank you. I don't even have any words to thank you, Sheraz, for this wonderful insight and definitely memorable, conversation we had. That's why we went over the time. And I also want to say something is that we all have many cells in between our ears, right? So each morning, when we say we are good or we are bad, we direct order to the cells. They're like workers, so they say, okay, Sheraz said he's in a bad temper, so we are going to do the work in the bad temper, and vice versa. So that's very important, because it really struck me how you can definitely on your own, be the one that decides. Who am I going to be? Where am I going to be and when? So I want to say to people over there that it's not too late to start a new life changing. And thank you so much again, Sheraz, for that. I appreciate that. And thank you for everybody that was here. And we hope to see you next time, Sheraz, and have a long, prosperous, and fantastic life, man.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Much appreciated.